the pocket. Jules Robinson was down there. She claims the mark. But Glenn Strawn's start to his Port Adelaide tenure begins with 4 premiership points in Coburn. Port Adelaide with a round 1 statement. They keep the Dockers to 2 goals and take a 21-point lead to go 1-0 in 2026.
Alrighty, good evening everyone and welcome to the CREEDCAST. It is your weekly Port Adelaide review podcast coming at you here on a Tuesday night as per usual, 18th of August. And we are in the Port Adelaide Equinox at the moment with the few weeks of the season that Jamie and I are watching replays coming out of our ass with the 2 games a week of premiership points being played for by your Port Adelaide Footy Club in the men's and women's competition. And a nice little sandwich of 2 games that made us feel vastly disparate emotions with the men's, of course, having a rough loss on Saturday evening, but backed up by a very, very impressive women's win on Sunday afternoon. So we will be packing 2 reviews into the episode tonight. So for the next couple of weeks, it is just a little bit more condensed on both teams to try to pack them in, whilst not exhausting Jamie and I by going until 3 a.m. in the morning or anything like that. So we'll try to get through both in the next couple of hours here. We will be starting with the women because we want to start with the positives while we've got the energy, and then we'll just tack the men on at the end because there's not too much to write home about that one, but there is still things to talk about and get through the segments and all of that stuff. We will be doing segments for the women this year as well, so we're really looking forward to getting into that, all the votes, and pretty standard format for the women as well, which we'll be getting into first here. But before we get into too much of it all, I'll welcome the co-host, the talent of the podcast. Jamie, I assume we are finally recovered from our efforts on Saturday evening here?
Recovered and well. I'm just weary and exhausted from everyday life now, so it's a nice swift kick in the proverbials. But no, we definitely turned one on Saturday night to a large extent. So much so that, I was feeling really sorry for myself on Sunday. Up until the women's game gave me a nice little burst of energy and positivity. But no, won't be doing that again anytime soon because, let the boys loose, and with a lot of time to drink before the footy, at the footy, and when that's providing a lot more entertainment than the game played, things can get out of hand quickly. But apart from that, enjoyed the weekend, enjoyed the company on Saturday, enjoyed the women's game on Sundays. So look, it wasn't all for nothing. Port Adelaide, from a South Australian point of view, got something out of the weekend, which was nice. And I look forward to chatting about it.
Absolutely, yes. The one win from one of the AFL representatives in this state came from the Port Adelaide Footy Club. So, and that happened on Sunday, and of course, we're going to get right into that one. So, of course, your Port Adelaide women's footy team travelled west to take on the Fremantle Dockers over at Coburn Oval, the first AFL match actually played for premiership points there, and a pretty dominant performance after the first 8 to 10 minutes, with your Port Adelaide Footy Club running out 6-5-41 to 2 goals 8 winners over Fremantle. While you might look at the scoring shots and say pretty similar and all that, really I think the point to start with here, Jamie, is how pleasing it was to see, apart from, again, that first 8 to 10 minutes, but we held them at bay, and then just the control and steady, consistent control we were able to manage out from that point of the match. I had the nerves that you usually do as you're watching live, but in hindsight, I look at it and go, I don't think we really felt challenged in a serious way from that point on once we got ourselves out in front.
It's an interesting point you make. Very important game to start off the season, as we discussed in the preview, of course, for all the machinations and the reflection on last season's commencement in round one. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose for myself, I didn't get to tune in until Freo already had 4 behinds on the board, and I was just thinking a bit like, oh, what's happened here? But thankfully, they had missed, and to extend upon that thankfulness from that point on, we got ourselves into the game, we gained ascendancy, and we just let that flow on. I liked the coaching insight from Glenn Strawn at 3/4 time. It was a nice moment to kind of input. It's good access to get in the AFLW competition. And you can tell kind of what preceded that conversation, and then it was just with that little insight, and then to finish off the way we did. We definitely gained ascendancy, and our defensive makeup, thanks largely to an outstanding game of football by Tegan Jermack, but ably supported by the whole defensive line. But Amelie Borg too, a lot was being made of her job on Zanka in the game, who is one of Freo's more prolific scorers, and kept her pretty quiet as well. So while Jermack had the highlight reel, Amelie Borg as well marshaled that back line like we know that she's very capable of doing, and kind of flies under the radar a little bit. But that's just focusing on one line in particular. The team defense as a whole was good, but I thought that our transitional play was heavily improved on recent seasons as well, which put Freo under pressure, but it kept them under pressure for a lot of the game.
Yeah, and that's what we've kind of been looking for. I think shout out to Andrea Ferguson, who replied on Twitter and said that she was just really pleased with kind of that kind of control aspect of the game. And that's what you and I have been talking about it for years, the years that the side has been in the competition, that we expect that this continued growth, the very, very deliberate plan to recruit young and develop a side together, that this would come if the talent's there, this kind of performance and control would come. And because it was a few years ago where kick mark down the ground looked like a completely foreign concept to these girls. And that's not to denigrate them. It was just that's where they were at in their development. They were so raw, still figuring out how to play that kind of style and where to be. And then in this game, you could just see they were getting out the front of their opponents, reading the play, spreading, whether it was moving down the line or taking some angles. And it was quick as well. They wanted to take that. It was still kind of that style that we were playing last year, but with just a little bit more defensive solidarity and care, letting the play develop a little bit. And that's what threw Freo for a spin, because, I mean, Fremantle, I think we win clearances by +5 or something like that, I think, in the end. But Fremantle started, I might be thinking of the inside 50 numbers as well. There was 2 points I was going to make. The clearances we win by +9, actually. I think inside 50s we win by +5, but Fremantle started 9-2 on inside 50s and started pretty clear on clearances as well. So we basically flipped both of those areas. But even with the clearance number and the inside 50 numbers early going towards Fremantle, we still seemed to have the ability to transition once we'd win. We were confident in our ability to win the ball back, and of course, and like Will Schofield's new favourite player in Tegan Jermack, just being the wall, as he called her, back behind the ball. Basically, they were getting the clearances early, and we were dealing with them. But then as the game progressed, Matilda Scholes, who obviously went off for a concussion test early in the game, so she was off for a bit, but she grew into the game in the battle against Strom, which is just two of the best rucks in the competition going at it. She, ends up winning the battle. It's good. It's a good battle. Min didn't play bad. It's just like it was just a classic good ruck battle. But she grows into the game. Midfield, like Darrick, starts growing into the game and just dominating the centre clearance. It looks like there's a bit of like a real good synergy in whether it be Darrick and Woodland in there, or Maloney as well, and a few others are getting there. The CBA's in there as well. Goody goes in for a few, because we didn't even have to. I think Scholes only had one clearance in the game, possibly. We've had games in the past where it's like, who's going to go with Scholes as a clearance machine? But we have Darrick and Woodland combined for 14 clearances, and both of them kind of split, like, one predominating at stoppage, one predominating at centre, and so we start winning that territory battle as well. And then suddenly Fremantle are having to try to rebound against us, but we've still got the wall set up at the back. Jermack's still doing her thing. Emily Borg, Ebony O'Day's taking marks. And so that defensive solidarity that Glenn Strawn has come in and is apparently, it's one of his strengths and one of his bases is he kind of wanted to bring that in. So we have that defensive solidarity, but still play that far. Like, we played fast down the field when we could, but there was still decision making. You could see more careful decision making being made, and you just had synergy between lines, and it was just so pleasing to see this young side, some of these young players that we've been watching for a few years now, and some of the veterans as well. It was like a good mix of, you know, the young players bringing the skills that are ever developing to the table, as well as, you know, Ebony O'Day's a veteran down back, Gemma Houghton's a veteran up forward, Ashley Woodland's 28 in the middle. They're kind of, you know, the veterans across the lines, but then they're being ably supported, and actually the youngsters that are 21, 22, 23 in your Borgs, Scholes, Germex, they're all starring as well. Lauren Young down forward. Like, there was not any passengers on the day, which was really, really pleasing to see, even in our debutants who, you know, maybe don't have high disposal numbers, but everyone played their role and ultimately led to a dominant performance against this Fremantle side, which again, I think it's just a tick for the coach straight away coming in. That was the biggest unknown going into this game, wasn't it? That is this coach's message getting through? And it was a very salient point you brought up about the access at 3/4 time. What was it? Take the $5 plays, not the $50 plays. Yeah. It was great stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, much like Will Schofield. I heard that, and I loved it. It's applicable again, you know, cricketing brain test series is on at the moment as well. And it's a very similar, I don't know, philosophy, I guess. You know, if you a lot of the time you win games of cricket with the amount of singles you hit, not necessarily with the amount of boundaries you hit. T20 is a bit different, of course. But yeah, winning games with appreciating the singles in cricket as a cricketer, rather than always going for the money shots, generally holds you in good stead. And and from a footballing point of view, taking the $5 play and keeping the opposition on their toes rather than inviting them back in, constantly trying to make the miraculous play or the $50 play, like he mentioned, that was awesome. The age demographic, you mentioned Ebony O'Day as well. I have to highlight the fact that she's played every single AFLW game for Port Adelaide since they mentioned that in commentary. Yeah. And one of our favourites here, of course, a favourite across the Port Adelaide fan base who follow AFLW just for her uncompromising way of playing. And the team is well complemented by veterans. I guess she would perhaps fall in that basket. I'm not sure her age, but considering she's been around for every game of the Port Adelaide journey thus far, it would kind of put her in that kind of category.
I think she was on Collingwood's list before that week before we came in as well. And I know she went to high school with my younger brother. So I'm just, and he's in his late 20s. So I'm just putting that, like, that's where I'm going with that. So, carry
the one.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Good for us, the girl that she is.
But just to echo something that you were chatting about, just the evolution of our game style. It was just the unknown, and we had that defensive integrity. But what I appreciated the most was that we gained ascendancy and we maintained pressure by staying true to our roots. We won this game, and there's a lot of stats to like, but we won this game through contest and pressure, and we dominated stoppage. So it was most pleasing to see that warm day in Perth, of course. There was a bit of tiredness coming into the game in the fourth quarter. Thankfully, though, because we were on top, it seemed like Freo were running out of legs a bit more, and they were kind of going for, I mean, they had to take the game on, but it looked like they were going for the $50 plays occasionally, maybe $20 plays, you know, not the $5 plays, which I presume may be a theme as we go forward now that we've been introduced to that notion.
Oh, yeah, that's a brainworm now.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was one of the boundary rider, I can't remember her name, unfortunately. There you go. If she and she mentioned that she listened in on the Freo coach, who specifically said not to bomb it long, and they had their passages of play where they tried to calm things down, but it was just interesting. You could tell they were wrestling with what to do and how to attack us throughout the game because they were falling behind, and we seemed to be getting value for money the more we attacked them. You could see them playing a bit of tug of war in their own minds. There were patches of the match where Freo were trying to take ground and surge the ball forward, and then there was that wrestle back to calming it down, working their way up the field. But the consistent theme across the 4 quarters, I suppose, after Freo kicked those 4 behinds early, was that we still maintained our defensive integrity and our contest and pressure, which meant that a lot of their forward forays were met with intercepts or unforced errors and things of those ilk, which was most pleasing. Like I said, there's a lot of stats to like. We won contested possession, tackles, stoppage was a dominance, inside 50s, clearance, like you mentioned, and while we evolved our defensive play across the ground, you mentioned something else about changing angles and not being so reliant on a surge mentality, which we've based our game off of largely while the team is up and coming. And there's reasons for that. I mean, it's held us in pretty good stead over the last couple of years, obviously making our way to a prelim in 2024 and missing out by percentage in 2025 after a slow start, but being one of the form teams of the competition up until the end of the home and away season last year. I do think there was still those round 1 cobwebs, and I found myself, maybe because we're so deep into the men's season now watching a women's game, I found myself getting a bit frustrated at times, and I had to check myself on a couple of occasions and go, well, I give the men's team a lot of rope when it comes to working their way into the season, rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, shaking of those cobwebs, trying to implement those strategies developed in the preseason. And there was a few cobwebs. There was a few occasions where you could tell, their instinct was telling them to surge, but then they wanted to, find a short kick or a changing of angle, and it didn't quite work, or they miskicked it. A few stab kicks that the girls didn't quite kick through the ball and really nail that target, and they were kind of, there's a few moments where you could tell they were in two minds a little bit, which happens. But overall, I think the better team won. And you mentioned the scoring shots. You just have to kind of, if you watch the game, it's how those scoring shots are coming about a little bit. And I mentioned to you in the second quarter that I think we dominated that quarter largely, but I think we only kicked 1 goal for that quarter. So maybe the scoreline is a bit flattering to Fremantle.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I don't know if there is an expected score thing out there for women's footy. I know Jamie and I have been lamenting that there's a lot of women's footy stats that simply don't get recorded, like whether it be pressure acts and a few other things that we love to look at. And
intercept,
it's quite
marks,
frustrating.
Ground ball gets.
Get me a champion data man in this room now.
Or get me into champion data's room, and I'll record those stats.
I think the line has been said on this podcast, I think probably last year, that we would happily do that job for them if they'd let us and, remunerate our time at least. But I'd do it for free if I had the time and money to do it, because I want the stats. They deserve the respect of the equal statistic recording as well. But the one that I'd love to see expected score, because there was a lot of shots on our end that we, Gemma Houghton put one that she took from a decent angle across the face. I think that weird play in the last quarter where they went towards the goal face and Ella Bogue was the only one that realised that, like, the Fremantle players just stopped, but Ella Bogue tried to snap it, and I think it just went across the face. So there was a few shots, like ones that went to the goal face for us, that were very dangerous plays that just didn't end up even registering it behind. So we had a few of those. That was really pleasing as well, that it was a concern of mine out of the preseason match against Fremantle that I thought our kick mark and transition game was pretty good. It's just once we got to 50, we seemed to not have an avenue forward. And in this game, we did Obviously, it still wasn't, it wasn't an absolute torrent of scoring, but we did score a 21 doubled their score. So we did what we needed to do, and we were getting a bit more dangerous ball deeper inside 50. There was still a bit of there was a couple of bad bounces with Gemma Houghton tried to handball it to Tahoe, and it kind of bounces and goes the other way, and a few weird things like that. That's just the nature of this sport. But it was pleasing to see us getting a bit more dangerous ball closer to goal.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. Yeah. And, whether we want to split up lines and chat about that in more depth. But that was a really pleasing aspect of it. And I guess that's the evolution of our attacking prowess, when all the talk's been about how we improve and strengthen our defense. Yeah, a pleasing aspect of the game and why we were so prevalent on the score sheet was the fact that we were building the ball up and getting it inside 30 with some damage or capability to put some damage on the scoreboard. And it's a whole heck of a lot easier. No matter, if we're playing in the men's competition or the women's competition, it's much easier to kick good winning scores when you're getting the ball deeper inside 50 and inside that 30-meter area. We are blessed with a couple of big kicks. Tahoe, Dowrick is a big kick. Lauren Young, her goal was fantastic and just showed that she's got a bit of length and distance on her kicks too. But again, whether it's men's football or women's football, the closer you get it to the goal face, the more pressure you put on the defense, and the higher your expected score is. Just on that note, without even looking at it, you just know. And that hasn't exactly been the case for our girls in recent years. We've had that surge mentality, but particularly early in the season last year and even the year before, it was building the ball up to a wing and under a bit of pressure, just bombing it long and hoping that Gemma Houghton could do something kind of miraculous and bring teammates into the game and things of the like there. So again, another great evolution to our game. It is only one game, so I'm intrigued to see how we progress with this, how we shake off the cobwebs and potentially improve upon this. But, when we're really challenged, Freo aren't a bad team. They finished around where we did last year, and we did lose to this team last year. So that's not to denigrate them. All their good players played well, more or less. We just, I think, had a better spread and a better execution of game plan on the day.
Yeah. We can start with the forwards as well and just go with the positives. I feel like, the positive, negative, I don't think there'll be too much negatives. We can have constructive criticism, but I think, we can both just go with the positive.
Hard
I reckon.
After a round one win. Generally looking for themes. In the men's season, we've got a lot of source material to kind of reflect upon. So yeah.
Let's just be positive. What do you got? Because I know whatever you've got, I'm sure I've got other things to go. So give us a positive out of what you saw out of our forward line this week.
Well, yeah, and I don't necessarily want to be too obvious either. But for me, it's a bit, I don't know if sentimental is the right word, but just seeing Lauren Young start a game, finish a game, healthy, but also looking very assured around the football and with the football, very strong in the core. She looked very difficult to tackle, but always kind of looked a step ahead of the opposition. She knew what she wanted to do. It was just a matter of getting the ball and executing with whatever plan she had at the time. She kicks a goal for her efforts, like I mentioned, but we've had to wait for Lauren Young, and although she did play a handful of games last year, it's just a bit of you coming back from injury, but now we may, touch wood, we may get the whole Lauren Young experience. She has no pressure of the debut season, which we chatted about last year. She has none of that. She can just go in a forward line who's got a Hall of Famer in Gemma Houghton, to-be Hall of Famer, and last season's leading goal kicker for the competition, right there with her. She can just go to work and become the three-headed monster. Again, I don't like these connotations when we talk about the women's game, but, fair's fair. Everyone knows what I'm getting at. It could be quite a formidable trio if she can get into her work. But yeah, I was just more or less pleased to see her round one, fit and firing, but looking strong and hard to play against.
Yeah, strong marking. 6 marks in the game as well. She's strong overhead and ever present force down there. I could go with the obvious, but there's some players that have come up in votes later on. So just as a generality, what I was really pleased with the forward line was we kick a winning score. It's not like a big score, but it's a winning score, 6 goals, 5. And only one of those goals comes from one of the two that kicked 48 between them last year. We only needed one goal from them. They had their opportunities. Tahoe was ever present and Houghton was fantastic. She played the barometer style game that we love from Houghton. But we didn't actually need them, rely on them to score. We get scores out of your Woodland coming from midfield, Darrick coming from midfield. The debutante, Emily Elkington, her pressure down there was really great, and she had a promising start. Lauren Young, of course, and I'm probably missing, and Caitlin Pope as well, who are open to scoring. A lot of good things to say about her as well. So we get like a mix of, there's different players popping up scoring in different places, and that comes from that more consistent, dominant way that we're able to move the ball from down back and then get the ball into different spots down forward. There was still obviously for Fremantle obvious targets of ours to keep an eye on, but there was less of an obvious route to goal. It wasn't like, Gemma or nothing, as it has felt at times in the past, or, last year. Last year we did start scoring better because Tahoe started taking over some of that, and then, suddenly there was more for opposition defenses to work with. But like for a while there, it did feel like, when we were just starting to try to find a way to learn how to win a game of football, it was Gemma or no one, or, Teakle was down there at times as well. But, now we've got a forward line that Teakle didn't even make the side for this week. And we still didn't rely on the tall forwards or the key forwards to win us the game. We relied on, we needed them. They were important for structure, but we didn't need them to carry the scoring burden. And the forward line was better for it. Justine Mules-Robinson's been one that's popped up with 2 bags of 2 and 3 here at times in the past. She doesn't kick one. So you get a spread of scoring, a spread of danger down forward. And while these players are still incredibly important to the structure, the fact that we can find different avenues to score is a really, really big positive for me out of this one right away. It was one of the main kind of takeaways I took from watching it on the day.
Yeah, great call. And as we know in football, if you're getting goals from midfielders, it only helps you compete with the better sides, helps you put on better scores and winning scores, like you said. The forwards are there to kick goals, but it's the support around that puts your head constantly in front. So yeah, that's a great call, and I look forward to that evolution. Winning forward stoppage and seeing the midfielders go to work. I mean, Woodland's got a leg up because she's a prolific forward in her own right, and now she's just evolved completely into this almost, a bit of an unstoppable force at times, just with her strength and now her nous having a lot more exposure to the midfield. She can kind of blend the two together. But I love that. And we've been hoping for Darrick to continue to take steps forward. And part of that is getting her hands on the football more, which I'm not too unhappy with in this game. But also, using that to impact on the scoreboard, because she has a booming kick and she's generally been one of those players. People have different kicking styles, and in the AFLW being a developing competition with women of all different walks of life, some still working on getting their kicking style down pat, but she's just one that's always looked assured hand to foot. So yeah, it holds her in good stead. She's obviously strong through the legs, and she can drive through a football to kick it 45, 50 meters if she's on the run. So that's what we've been looking for too. So yeah, like in a couple of ways, tick, a couple of our forwards contribute, but like you said, we get that contribution from the midfield too, which hopefully continues game to game to game to game, and we have a even spread of goal kickers. Obviously, hope for the leading goal kickers to work their way ahead of the pack. But the more contributors you have, the harder to defend you are as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you it helps spread the defense, and then it opens up space for scoring. So, and we kind of saw that on the weekend. Is like we found holes and gaps, and Derek's goal comes from that. And we can move to the midfield and go with what the positives are from there, because there's plenty to choose from. So I'll be interested to see kind of what's the top of your pops for the kind of positives that comes from a very, very, very nice midfield performance that I was very excited by.
Yeah, look. I get, yeah.
Where do you start? Roll out the list.
Yeah. You have to state the obvious. I mean, it's probably reheating soup, but from something you mentioned earlier, it has been a bit of like, if it's not Schultz, if it's not Dowrick, then who is it? And I mean, Dowrick was her prolific self in terms of clearance, in particular, in this game. But Woodland came to play. The likes of Pope, Maloney, Goody, Bogue all had multiple clearances themselves. So, for me, the positive from the midfield is just, again, the even spread. To put it down to one player, though, without speaking the obvious ones, Ash Woodland and Abby Tarek played fantastic games. They really carried that midfield around Schultz, having that concussion test and her time on the bench, so that affected her overall gameplay. Still had a great game, by the way, and a great contest with Mimstrom. But for me, on the periphery, Ella Bogue started the game. She played the entire game. How do I put it? I'll compare it to last season. Last season, I think she was a bit slow to get going and found herself drifting in and out of games, particularly earlier in the season. But what I liked here, and on that topic, once she got into the season, or once she gets into games, she can actually throw her weight around a bit. For someone who's so slender and agile, I think something that I've noticed across the last couple of years is she's not afraid to like get involved in a bit of the rough stuff as well, and fly the flag for her team and her teammates. But I think what pleased me the most was that she was prevalent from the get-go and maintained her supporting act. She's generally on a wing. She's obviously got a couple of clearances out of this game, but she played on a wing. I did buy stocks in her a couple of years ago. And so I'm enjoying seeing those slowly rise, compound interest and all of that jazz. But for me, just the fact that, when I switched on the TV, Ella Bogue was there, her running patterns were good, and she always provided an option. She finishes the game with 15 disposals. Disposal efficiency could do with some work, but I'm confident that will improve as the year goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was really impressed with her. She was one of those ones, again, that we've kind of seen those glimpses of, and it's just finding that consistency to stay in the game. And she was one that was, one of the big things last year that we struggled with, particularly in the first half of last year with our side, was just falling away in the last quarter of games. And we kind of rectified that as the season went on. But it was really impressive to see those ones like your Ella Bogues and co be going strong still in the last quarter. You could see some of course tiredness, but by and large, we're still the team that was looking more likely to score in the last couple of minutes, and Ella Bogue was right there amongst it. Another one that I really enjoyed in the midfield, and this is what our midfield has needed in the last couple of years, is the kind of the help around, like you said, around those stars in your Scholzes and Darricks and obviously Woodlands. Developed into that as well. I wanted to say before, when you're talking about Woodland and becoming like, that all powerful kind of scoring midfielder, obviously the forward, and she's wearing number 8. Like, unfortunately, anyone watching on YouTube will notice I'm still in the portable setup here as I finish the last evening of 3 weeks of house sitting that I'm doing. So I don't have a Sting deck, but I do need to get a Sting for anytime I bring up Liverpool and make a comparison. But Ash Woodland wearing the number 8 and being a powerful scoring midfielder, it's like obviously Steven Gerrard, Ash Woodland. That's the comparison I want to make. Which
there's the LFC plug for the episode.
And anyone that knows me, as Jamie certainly does at this point, knows my love for Liverpool and obviously Steven Gerrard as well. So that comparison is the highest of compliments to what Ash Woodland can do for our midfield and kind of be a midfield force as well as attacking up forward. But another one that I was really, really impressed with the run and the connective piece. From defense to forward and just through the midfield was Caitlin Pope, who's really, really come on in the last 18 months as someone that was on the periphery maybe at the start of last season. I'm trying to think of the timeline of how she really became consistent in the side. But she has 18-odd posies, almost 400 metres gained in this game. Just had some open acres of space. I think she had a run of a couple of bounces at one point and just looked confident with it as well, which is great. And some really precise kicking as well at times when she was connecting the pieces. And of course she gets up with a goal herself, but just kind of as that high half forward kind of role that comes up and actually spent a fair bit of time playing a bit of connective piece in the midfield. That's what the midfield needs, is outside of your stars that are getting the clearances and getting the stoppage, doing the stoppage working and winning the most of the ball, is you need these kind of players like your Popes to ably assist in that space as well. So I was really, really pleased with her role in there, and that kind of helped round out the roles of everyone. Round out the midfield performance was the assistance from the outside, so to speak.
I have high praise for Caitlin Pope, and on your comments about her last season, I think one of the themes of our discussions with her was that she generally was fairly low possession, but the impact that she had per possession, whether it be a score involvement, like a score herself, a score involvement, goal assist, or a bit of a get-out kick as well, if she was up and down the wings, just connecting, she seems a lot more cool, calm and collected, or this is from a 2025 lens. She seems a lot more cool, calm and collected with it. She's generally got a pretty good kick, not a penetrating kick, but a honest, trustworthy kick on her too. So, yeah, I love Pope's game. It's a real level up, because I think maybe a couple of years ago she was on the periphery, and it was last year that she seemed to really cement a spot in the team, but was wholly and solely a support act, and maybe was benefited by Caitlin Wendland's absence last year. That helped her kind of develop that role, contribute on the scoreboard when she needed to. And yeah, with that opportunity again presenting itself. Unfortunately for Wendland, one of our favourites from 2024, it's really quite the frustrating thing about ACLs in the women's comp and just how the seasons work out. ACLs generally cost you 2 years, two seasons now. But yeah, the upside is Caitlin Pope, and now she's been able to level up and contribute more from a statistical point of view.
And she seems to just play with a quiet confidence as well. Like she doesn't play with any hesitation in a game either. Seems, and she's been a professional sports person for a while anyway, so it kind of comes with the territory. I think she's just got that kind of confidence, so which is really great to see. Defensively, I'm going to make a rule that we'll keep the Tegan Jermack to the votes, because obviously she's going to pop up there. So we'll maybe go outside of Jermack, because that's the clear positive out of it. But there's a few positives to be had there. So maybe I'll just make that a rule here, just to throw a spanner in the works for you early. But yeah, I assume you probably were thinking had a few there anyway. So what do you got for us outside of the wall that was Jermack?
Tegan Jermack is, the lowest hanging fruit that you could pick from this game. But I mentioned earlier about Amelie Borg's contest with Eden Zanker. Now, the commentary team were the ones to allude to the prevalence of Eden Zanker. Now, Zanker ends the game with 4 disposals and she goes goalless.
Mhm.
She's actually moved to Freo this year from Melbourne, where she finished 6th in the competition for goals kicked last year. So that just goes to show her prevalence with Melbourne and her prevalence in goal kicking. She finished the year with 22 goals last year. And that just goes to show how well Emily Borg did. Obviously, off the back of a solid team defence implementation on the day, and well supported by the Wall, Jermac, Ebony O'Day and the like, Molly Brooksby, Olivia Crane on debut. But yeah, I guess that can kind of put a bit more context on it. I'm not really sure what stats Emily Borg ended up with. If you just, so 6 disposals herself, going at 83.3% and 120 metres games. So really dominated her opposition, quite a formidable opponent. And again, that kind of under the radar type of lockdown role, which I guess from a AFLW point of view, when scoring's not that high typically, or just some of the machinations of how the gameplay gets underway. I think Emily Borg, even last year, flew under the radar. High praise for the people in the know. But that kind of puts a bit of context on how well she's going, or how well she went in this game, but particularly how well she's gone in the past, and maybe we haven't really paid enough attention to it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the my kind of positive out of it kind of backs off of, talking about Emily Borg, but more or less just the structure and the fact that having, found a Jermac in there, Ebony O'Day playing the way she is still, having a decent debut from Olivia Crane, like she didn't shirk anything either, and ably supported by like the run of like the likes of Brooksby and co. But just the structure overall is allowed, because it was a couple of years ago it felt like Emily Borg was really the only kind of strong key defender we had for doing, because she took some nice intercepts and whatnot in this game as well. And it's just the overall structure of the team is Emily Borg's allowed to kind of play that role a little bit better and lock down on a player, because I've finally got some able support around. Like I said, Olivia Crane comes in and has some nice moments as well. Doesn't shirk some tackles and get some not solid hits herself, but she gets some marks in. And there's no high disposal games from any of the defenders, partly because Jermac took a lot of them. But then they were able
contributed quite quite well across the game too.
Which
it's a strong backline.
Mm-hmm. And it shows that the recruiting's been good. Obviously, Ella Head's coming in from Sydney last year, and Jermac just being found as the injury replacement as well. But just the overall structure, and then some help as well. Like Dowrett comes, some of the defending from the midfield particularly early in the game when there was a bit more pressure being put on by Fremantle. There was sort of the help defense from the players coming back. So it's just a good team ethos to the team defense, and that kind of structure. And again, it's just a credit to Glenn Strawn coming in and implementing his ethos pretty quickly. He's only had a few months really with them, and his ethos, and like this is a team ready to go take that next step. Thankfully, anyway, they've been promising. It's not like he was coming in and doing a rebuild from the ground up, but he's still come in and been able to kind of adjust those things and make a difference there. So, yeah, I was just really pleased with the kind of the structure and how that worked and how each player complemented each other. There didn't seem to be any of that kind of confusion about where to be and who was who. It was very, very structured and very, very, you've got your role and the help and everything. So really, really pleased with it. A pleasing result. And of course, we'd love to spend a solid couple of hours on this one. And, we're looking forward to when we can just dedicate the reviews to the women only once the men's season finishes. Of course, if the men were playing finals, we'd be a lot more excited. But we will be a bit shorter tonight because we do have to get to the men's result after we finish the women's here. So we will move on to the segments. We're doing the segments this year for the women. So no stings this week because I am obviously in the remote setup. So I will just say that we are going to be starting. So for those that listen to the podcast, of course, you know the Wilson Gray Award. In the women, we're going to be calling it we're going with the PHILLIPS Award because Erin Phillips, she's an icon of Port Adelaide, and the Phillips name is an icon itself, and she epitomises a lot of what we love about the spirit of footy at the women's team as well. And so I couldn't really think of a better name since the AFL hasn't taken it for their Best and Fairest Award yet. We'll take it for the efforts on the field that we love outside of goal scoring opportunities. So the Phillips Award, the first nominations ever for this on the podcast. And Jamie, you get to take the honours to go first in this. It was with this women's team there's never a shortage of these kind of efforts on the field, which we're really, really pleased with. I'm intrigued to see where you've got the first nomination for this one.
Yeah, of course. And I feel quite honoured, actually. Just a bit of behind the curtain. There was a bit of discussion just about whether to pull the trigger this year or not. Obviously, we've been cognizant to the developing nature of the competition as a whole, but Port Adelaide in the competition too, and wanted to kind of implement these when the timing felt right. And I believe it was Simon as well, friend of the pod, who encouraged that implementation. And then to watch this game and just kind of equally between ourselves go, yep, the time is right because we've got some material. Was very satisfying. So look, to kick it off, and look, we're probably going with a bit of low-hanging fruit. We love a bit of low-hanging fruit. Can't go past Ebony O'Day in the first quarter. She doesn't let Gabby O'Sullivan out of the clutches of her hand, manages to keep a grip on O'Sullivan and really turn the tide on the game kind of in that instant. Freo had the 4 behinds on the board. They'd squandered some scoring opportunities and they had a genuine chance to attack their forward 50, forward 30, like we were talking about, getting it nice and deep. But unfortunately for them, Ebony O'Day had other plans in mind.
Kaufman back to Miller, moving well, kicking long towards space. O'Sullivan is dangerous in this situation. Can't slip the tackle, though, of Ebony O'Day.
That was brilliant by O'Day. I thought O'Sullivan had done more than enough. I thought it was a really good stop and step, but O'Day just wrapped her up.
A very good nomination by you. I think when we talked about this award, the genesis of bringing this into the women's game, I think a few months ago, we did joke about, well, not joke about it, just, ruminate on is the Ebony O'Day the right name? Because we just love, she does these efforts every week and we love them. So kind of, even though she's not the name of the award, it's somewhat in the spirit of our love for this women's team that she is the first nomination.
I feel like she'll feature throughout the year.
Yeah. She's going to Bamet's recent run in the men's side of things is kind of just one of those players that brings about that kind of effort. So a very good nomination by you. It was very, very high on the top of my shortlist as well because that did really kind of change the game and obviously leads to our first goal. So, but I do have one from the first quarter as well, and it's one of those moments I was talking about actually just then, and there's kind of defensive help. It's when in that moment, I think it was about 5 minutes gone, so about 13 minutes on the clock in the first quarter. And Fremantle are in that run of scoring their 4 points and on the bounce before we do get a score. Hayley McCarthy goes into the forward line, but she's chased hard by Abby Dowrick, and Abby Dowrick just lays a perfect example of why the bump needs to remain legal in the game, because when it's executed well, it is executed perfectly. It is beautiful to watch, and Dowrick just lays the bump on the star number 7 for Fremantle, and just a perfect bump just knocks her to the ground. And to McCarthy's credit, she does pop up and it ends up getting a handball received later in the play to have a shot on goal. But the chase from Dowrick to catch McCarthy and then lay a bump was really, really impressive. And the bump took her to the ground, so just the aesthetics of it was very, very pleasing as well.
Swings it forward, and McCarthy, if she gets a good bounce, she's in business. Big bump, though, from Dowrick. Put McCarthy on her backside.
From both players to be able to get up from that. Look at that one. McCarthy got to her feet.
what's not to love about a bump, you know? Yeah, I think one of the bumps in the men's comp last year went close to getting my Wilson Gray of the year. So yeah, we love a bump. Well, yeah, I mean every footy fan loves a well executed bump. So it was great to see tick that one in our round 1 match for the girls too. Great stuff.
Yeah. Abby Darrett putting together a nice highlights reel from the round 1 match as well. Alrighty, let's get to the goal of the week, which, of course, needs no too much preamble about what it's about. It is simply us nominating our goals of the week as per usual, like we do in the men's rounds. And I get to go first this week on the goal of the week for the women, which there was a couple of nice ones in this one. And I am going to take one that from my Stephen Gerrard, Ash Woodland, in the third quarter. I think it was the third quarter, but out of the deep, I think it was deep forward 50 stoppage, she kind of she's getting tackled almost as she kicks it, but she snaps it through out of the forward 50 stoppage, right more or less at the goal square. And just a really, really nice goal. Great Woodland stuff, good core strength, breaks out of the stoppage and snaps a really, really nice finish, just knowing where the goals are. Ash Woodland snapping a goal through. That's my goal of the week nomination.
Illy on debut, the number 33, the Cork product. Woodland gets an opening, finds the major opening. Perfect start for the Power.
Harvey Norman replay as we have a look at this. Just smart footy. Ripped it out of the hands of McCarthy. Said, give it here. And chucked it on the boot.
Yeah, look. Just strong. You know, has an opponent just hanging off of her and puts it on the boot and gets it through. A bit indecisive with my nomination, just because the two that I want to nominate are basically two good team goals. But I am going to go with Darrick's goal in the second quarter, which ticks off a good passage of play. It comes off the back of a Tegan Jermack intercept, with the likes of Pope and Woodland being involved in the play, which gets it to Darrick around 50 metres, and she kicks truly. I believe that was to get us underway from a goal point of view too. So correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, Darrick's goal. Oh no, of course, Caitlin Pope kicked the first goal. Darrick's goal was the first goal and our only goal of the second quarter in its entirety. So yeah, that one for me.
Pope again gets the 1-2. Woodland the target. Read the ball well, kept her footing. Now to Darrick. Finds a way through. Goes towards goal and drills it. The Power off to a brilliant start on Coburn.
Yeah, that was, because I think when I was watching live, I missed the Woodland one for some reason. I think the dog was doing something stupid. So I actually didn't see the Woodland one properly until I watched the replay. I did hear it and heard the commentators sound pretty excited by it. I was like, I'm intrigued to watch that one. But going into my replay watch, I was like, I think the Darrick one's my nomination unless I see something better. And not that they're better in two different ways. They're pretty similar. Similar in aesthetic appeal. They're just two different goals. The Darrick one's just a nice clean pickup and strike from distance, like classic kind of ball midfielder, goal-scoring midfielder kind of goal. And as you kind of alluded to earlier, her kicking action is very, very, AFL and AFL ready, and that's why she's been able to score those goals. She's done a few of those for us across the journey so far, and long may it continue because we need those. Yeah. Alrighty, looking forward to getting the votes. Of course, the Player of the Year votes, which we have done every year for the women, of course. And this week, there was no shortage of options. Maybe a pretty clear best on ground, but everything else before that might be intriguing. So Jamie gets to, of course, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. The votes system works on a 5-through-1 basis, 5 being our best on, 1 being our fifth best on. And of course, those are tallied at the end of the year for the Player of the Year from our podcast to the women's team and of course the men's team as well. We take it in turns as to who goes first each week. We don't know who's voting for who, so sometimes we Yahtzee and it's really exciting, but I'm interested to see if that happens this week. Jamie, let us know what you got.
Thank you. Look, not one to do honourable mentions first, but I'm not necessarily going to, but my one vote goes to Caitlin Pope on the topic of Caitlin Pope. because I loved her game. Very unlucky. So the one vote for two reasons. She had a fantastic game, I thought. And also, the player that's unlucky to miss in my votes is Gemma Houghton. When you look, score involvements, couple of goal assists. My eye test, I didn't really think that Houghton had a great game, but she ends with 5 score involvements, equal leading the team, and 2 goal assists, which is very Gemma Houghton. But thought her ball handling left a lot to be desired, and there was a couple of times where it looked like she didn't want to bend down to pick up the ball. But that's enough about Gemma Houghton. The easy thing for me to leave her out this week is I think that Gemma Houghton's going to feature as the season progresses. So keeping my powder dry there. And heck, look, Dave could even give Houghton a vote in this one. We'll wait and see. But Caitlin Pope, number one, 1 vote for myself, 18 disposals, 9 of which contested. She had 9 kicks at 61.1%. 320 metres, 4 marks, the goal to get us underway in her 3 score involvements, 2 clearances as well, which I think I touched on in the midfield chat, 3 inside 50s and 3 tackles. So just a well improved, probably one of her best games in Port Adelaide colours from an overall statistical point of view, which is great to see. 2 votes goes to Matilda Schultz. Really great matchup in the ruck. Probably backs up my opinion that in the international fixture, she got criminally underutilised, and Mimstrom basically got first ruck based on historical markers, which I guess you're going to do with a one-off international fixture. But I thought the balance was way out, and Matilda Schultz, who played less game time than Mimstrom in this game, in this matchup, produced 25 hit-outs, 16 disposals, 8 contested possessions, 5 intercepts herself, 62.5% disposal efficiency, around 220 metres, 4 marks and 4 tackles. I think she took the chocolates overall, and like you said in your discussion point, like Mimstrom didn't have a bad game. It was a great matchup between two, arguably the best 2 rucks in the competition. But I think Schultz just takes the cake there. 3 votes goes to Abby Dowrick, copy and paste Dowrick, as we've come to know her, for her prevalence in particularly the podium finishes of our votes, if not best on ground, most of them in the last couple of seasons. Abby Dowrick gets my 3 votes, 23 disposals, 13 contested, 15 kicks at 78.3%. So the disposal efficiency across the board is probably also something that I liked to see. As the team develops, it hasn't been that great to what we expect as Australian rules fans, AFL fans. But the disposal efficiency, particularly with our prime movers, it took a step up in this game. And so 15 kicks at 78.3, 557 metres, 3 marks, 1 goal, 3 score involvements, 7 clearances, 5 from the centre, 3 inside 50s, 2 rebound 50s, and 3 tackles for copy and paste Abby Dowrick. 4 and 5, not sure if it's contentious. It's pretty obvious at this point. Ash Woodland with the 21 disposals gets my 4 votes, 11 of those contested, moved it at 66.7%, 482 metres, 3 marks, 1 goal, 1 with 1 goal assist as well, being the Dowrick goal. 5 score involvements, 7 clearances, 5 inside 50s, and 7 tackles. That's another thing too, is she's just relentless on the tackle as well. She's just becoming one of the most well-rounded footballers, particularly in our team. But if she keeps pushing on, she has claims to be one of the more well-rounded footballers in the competition with her, goal-kicking ability out of the midfield. 5 votes. What a pleasure to provide the 5 votes, the 5 precious CREEDCAST votes from my side of the fence to Tegan Jermack. And wouldn't GWS just be crying in a corner because they obviously delisted her, and we picked her up as an injury replacement player in 2024. She finishes this game with 19 disposals, 11 of which were contested, 16 of which were intercepts. I can't tell you how many intercept marks she took because, as Dave mentioned earlier, champion data fucking leaves some shit off, which frustrates the hell out of us. But she had 12 kicks out of her 19 disposals that went at 12 kicks, but for her 19 disposals as a whole went at 84.2% disposal efficiency, which is just music to my eyes. Moving on, 389 meters. 5 marks, 2 contested. I can tell you that much. 2 score involvements, 7 rebound 50s, and 2 1%ers for Tegan Jermack. Just a real, not sure if it's a breakout game because she had some fantastic games last season, but it's probably her career best game, her magnum opus to this point in time. I'm ready for more magnum opuses, which is probably an oxymoron. I don't know Latin. But yeah, she really announced herself, I guess, to the competition. We've always rated her running ability, the way that she can kind of break off an opponent or shrug off an opponent to gain meters by foot and then dispose of the ball that way. But the intercept marking, the strength in the contest too. And she was interviewed afterwards and said that she'd worked really hard in the off-season and pre-season on her marking ability, with hopes to influence games a bit more in that regard. And I suppose it's what we were hoping we could get out of Janelle Cuthbertson, with our hopes that she would, I mean, she did early in her Port Adelaide career and unfortunately suffered the injury, which kind of, derailed her AFLW career and her time with Port Adelaide. But that's kind of what we were after, that kind of intercepting talisman, for want of a better label there. In our back line, Ange Foley is probably one of those types as well, before and during Janelle Cuthbertson's time. But Tegan Jermack, just being the brick wall that she was just a sight to behold as a Port Adelaide fan, and long may that continue in quite a formidable defensive setup where, as they mentioned in commentary too, Sachi Syme, who was one of our better intercept players last year, was on the sidelines and maybe coming back into the team to further bolster that line on the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be possibly a few more shouts of yes, Sarch from the sidelines at Alberton this weekend, hopefully. I think to back off of your votes, obviously I've got Jermack's my 5 votes as well. So absolute generational kind of game.
Really?
Yeah, who knew? She also got the perfect 10 coaches votes as well, which was
Yes.
just shows just how dominant her game was, that both coaches recognised that as well. To your point about the intercept marks, I think I caught in the commentary, I'm pretty sure Will Schofield said 5 intercept marks at one point, being that she has 5 marks for the game. It does stand to reason that all of her marks came from intercepts. So I'm not that could have just, I could be misremembering. So don't take that as gospel, Creed fam, as much as I like to say that everything I say is true. If you watch me on Twitter, sometimes I don't always speak complete gospel, but I think that she did. I think every mark she took was an intercept mark, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, again, champion data, get your shit together, whoever's doing the data for the AFL Women's, because we want more in-depth data to be able to review these games, because these girls deserve it, because they put together some incredible games. She obviously gets my 5 votes. Going back to the rest of my votes, you're saying, Gemma Houghton might get more votes this year. Yeah, I've got her at my 1. Who knew? David loves Gemma Houghton.
I thought that would be
she's
the
in
case.
My 1. Caitlin Pope was I wanted to get her in there as well, so I'm very, very glad you did. But for Gemma, look, she went at 35% disposal efficiency, so not great disposal efficiency, but it was just the barometer impact. It's just one of those games again, and I have rose-tinted glasses for Gemma Houghton, because I just think, but it is just such an impact thing that she kind of, the forward line just doesn't function the same way without her. She had 2 of those marks that she did the mark stiff arm play on thing inside 50, and the commentators are like, that's what she does. And one of them didn't really come off, but the other one did. And it's just like, but either way, it's just like the danger she provides down there. She has the 5 score involvements, 5 inside 50. She has the 2 goal assists, which I think is the only multiple goal assist player on the field, if I remember correctly, 8 contested possessions. So she kind of just did, for Gemma Houghton to have 14 disposals but not kick. Often if she's having 14, 15 disposals, it's a goal scoring effort, but she actually has this impact without having to need. She obviously would be nice if she kicked the goal, but the fact she had a couple of goal assists, she still kind of played her role. So I got her in my 1 vote. I had Matilda in my 2 votes, so you've already gone through the stats there. I had Woodland in my 3 votes, but it was one of those games I wanted to give both her and Darrick 4 votes. I think they had such an even impact on the contest. I think they were equal. Both were second best on field, if that makes sense. And it was just like I just had to pick one or the other. And I just think Darrick's impact in the middle was kind of like, I think there's so much importance stemmed from there for me when I watched it. That's just where I went. But I think it's perfectly reasonable and agreeable that Woodland is the second best on field as far as our binary voting system works. I think they both were fantastic. So I think that goes to show with how we've done those votes that way, that they were just so even to us, and it was splitting hairs really. They both were incredible and had such a tangible impact on this result. And it's really nice to see a back woman getting the 5 votes as well. It's like a great way to start the year, isn't it? Like, when Matilda's getting in the votes but not having the impact, but not needing to have the impact, that's a good place for the side to be. And when Matilda has one of those Matilda games, it's going to be, and then the rest go with her, it's going to be good to watch. So a great way to start the season for the women. Like I said, I'd like to be doing an hour and a half, 2-hour podcast on this game. But unfortunately, we have a 76-point loss to get to on the men's side here in a moment. But to segue to it, I wanted to just say, great to see the women wearing the fully charged kit as well as their clash kit. Really nice to see that. And a little statistical note as well, that is the first win for the Port Adelaide Football Club in the fully charged kit, because, of course, the men haven't won a game wearing it yet.
Yeah, so of course.
Shout out the W for getting the win in the fully charged kit. I think the men have a chance this weekend, but it's just a chance. I'm not going to guarantee a win against Essendon at this point, with the fact that fucking Jason Horne-Francis broke his toe. So let's segue into the men's results. We, of course, play Melbourne on Saturday evening in a game that, Melbourne scored 20 goals, and I think Jamie and I had about 20 beers each as well. So that's about how the night went. 20 goals, 12, 132 for Melbourne to 8 goals, 856 for Port Adelaide. So a 76-point loss, as I said. Not a whole lot to write home about this one. And Jason Horne-Francis broke his toe. Before we get into the review, Jamie, I just wanted to bring up something. I just noticed on Instagram while I was actually looking for my Gemma Houghton stats from the post I put up the other day. And the AFL and Cal Toomey have collaborated on a post that Mitch Georgiades is imminently re-signing. So there's a little bit of good news breaking on the podcast. I trust that one. I don't trust Chris Dittmar from 3 fucking weeks ago.
Well, and if it comes off, I guess his mail was good.
It was.
Which further confuses everything.
It is. It's just like, can we just like... I at least like the fact that I do trust Cal. Like once it goes to AFL and Cal Toomey, I'm like, okay, that's the guy I trust. So... Mitch Georgiades poised to extend deal to end of 2029. So that's another 2 years on top of him ending next year. So that gives him, I think, probably gets him to possibly unrestricted free agency, but gets him at least through a good amount of time under Josh Carr to give us a chance to see what we can do with Mitch Georgiades in the forward line. So it's a very, very good part of the rebuild.
He's probably seen... it's not merry-go-round, the circus surrounding his housemate, Zach Butters, and he's just like, I don't want to fucking deal with that next year. So, if this is all true, don't want to count any chickens, but like you said, if it's Cal Toomey, it's generally good information.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm trusting that one. That's actually put me in a good mood to talk about this fucking shit show of a result. Not that it was unexpected, I guess, and we'll get to. We won't probably spend too much time on it, to be honest. I don't want to, and I don't need to, but we will talk about it a bit because I think there's a few interesting parts of this to talk about, because I find it fascinating that I look at obviously disposals. We do get out. The ball is used far more by the Melbourne Football Club. They do smash. It's probably the first real smashing we've had in contested ball since Ken Hinkley left. So that's probably a real concern for Josh Carr. But out and out around the ground. Like we actually win clearances. We smash it in centre. We win at stoppage. We win the hit out. So we have this kind of win in that area of the game. We have 30 more marks for the game, which is insane. Like I just wasn't expecting to see this when I went into the stats because obviously I don't remember watching it on the night. Drink responsibly, people, but also have fun when you need to. But then you look at the turnover number and go 84 turnovers to 56 and go, okay, I get it. We're shit at using the ball. And that's really just watching the replay again because, yes, ladies and gentlemen, whether you think it was required or not, Jamie and I did subject ourselves to a replay. We were there on the night, physically, mentally. We were in our cups, deep in our cups. So we did put ourselves through a replay of this one. And it was really a game where we had 5 minutes in the second quarter. I was like, okay, we're bringing ourselves into the game. But by and large, it was just a game that once it got outside of the contest stoppage, where we did have some wins and some able good performances from some of our stars. Once it gets outside to the inexperience versus the inexperience that we've got outside the contest versus the experience of Melbourne around there, their ability to win the ball in the contested ball, the ground ball, that's the tail of the tape for me right there. I don't know how you saw it on your replay watch. Yeah, like I said, I think we both don't recall much of the live viewing, but the replay watch, while I got some points out of it, it was more or less just the points as to why we lost so badly is what I got out of it.
Yeah, I remember nigh on nothing from the game. I remember after the game checking a few stats and being surprised at Mitch Georgiada's ledger, which we'll chat about in the lines. But yeah, look, just one of those days. So I desperately needed a replay because my recollection of the game after, well, to be fair, quarter time, and I mean that basically starts where my thought process begins as well, is 7-1, and it's kind of all said and done from that. I think we kick 7 goals to 13 after quarter time, which is still a fairly hefty defeat just on that in isolation. But it's probably more where we thought we could land, particularly because our defensive statistics still stacked up against Melbourne's leading into the game, where their attacking statistics obviously pipped us, as we discussed in the preview, but 7-1 was just a deplorable effort. And what I saw on replay was just one team, very much like Sydney, was well-drilled, a well-oiled machine. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. Even when they weren't winning stoppage and clearance, like you said, they knew where everyone was going to be. They hassled the shit out of a young team that was susceptible to pressure, and they killed us on turnover. I was surprised to see the score on turnover from the Sydney game, which I thought was maybe one of our bigger score sources against since some of those really poor losses in Ken Hinkley's last year in 2025. But Melbourne took it to another level, and they kicked, 17-9, which works out to 111 points from turnover alone. So, yeah, I just saw a system both in defense and offense that was sloppy. There's some players who racked up some good statistical markers, and when you look at it, you're like, oh, well, geez, you win clearance, and these guys are winning their fair share of ball, such as, Richards, Wines, JHF even, as we know, playing on a broken toe. Miles Bergman had his fair share of disposals, but I just don't know if we got the return for a lot of those disposals. But more to the point is, I think our top end performed satisfactorily, but I think this was a real game where the bottom end is kind of where the two teams were separated, because our bottom end just really didn't make up the difference in quality in this game. Like I said, Melbourne's a well-oiled machine. They've got a good blend of experience and youth. They're in form. they're full of confidence, and we're just simply limping to the line without 8 of our best 23 playing on the field. And look, excuses, mitigating factors, whatever they are, it's a reality, and it was haphazard at best. Yeah, the second quarter was good. Josh Carr obviously gave him a bit of a rev up at quarter time and a bit of a bake. We held in good stead, but unfortunately, and in my drunken stupor, it didn't quite click to me how early Alir actually was forced out of the game.
I thought that was later. I didn't think that was before half time. I thought that was like, I was like, oh, at least we got to see Alir for most of the fucking. Yeah. Look, Time
guilty
is
as charged with the rounds being bought on the night. But so, the breakdown after halftime, we get a bit of mojo or a bit more of a defensive accountability in the second quarter. But after halftime, no Alir, it leaves Harrison Ram, who's still getting into his work at AFL level, and Dante Vicentini, who has been a kind of a surprise packet in defence, but it leaves them exposed, particularly when we can't execute ahead of the ball and Melbourne are just preying on turnovers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the turnovers number was horrible, wasn't it? And it was even just I was just looking at the Wheeler ratings, just the post-clearance contested possession. It was like a plus 30, plus 38 difference there to Melbourne, 107 to 69, and post-clearance ground ball gets was 80 to 50 as well, so plus 30. So you're kind of seeing, like, if we're winning clearance, but then they're just dominating contested possession and ground ball out of that, and just a general ground ball. The ground ball game and the ball came to ground both in their forward 50 and then the defensive 50 was good as well. They were just, far better drilled. Obviously, just as an overall kind of ethos, and again, the difference between the teams as far as age goes, they're 2 years older than us on average, and almost 50 games more played on average as well. So they're just a far more experienced team, and experience. Yeah, and kind of this is actually where the bookmarking of doing the women's review and the men's review here works. Is like we were just talking about the women's experience starting to the build from a youthful, inexperienced team from 2-3 years ago with your Emily Borgs and co, now getting to the point they are now where they're starting to handle the ball. The game's slowing down for them. They're handling the ball better. They're getting the handballs better. The kicks are better. Your Balin O'Briens and all those guys, Harrison Rams, et cetera, et cetera. Not wanting to pick. I'm not picking out those names to be negatively critical. It's just I did see those kind of guys really just that there's that hesitation. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm sure you know what I mean. There's just that hesitation step that they take where it's like they're not sure about their next step, so it shows in their body language, and then they get to then it just becomes part of the players that they're just a little bit. Whereas a well-drilled player that a lot of Melbourne's are at the moment. Of course, Melbourne are actually a very, very good team this year.
And to cut in, that happens with the football and without the football.
Yeah.
Have hesitation with the football of, which play to make, but also when the ball gets turned over, where the fuck do I need to, stand? Just that extra thought process. In AFL standard football, it's as quick as that you can be exposed.
Yeah, that's what a lot of sports they say is 90% between the ears, and that between the ears goes to where your instincts tell you to go, your the skill set the skill sets that you have and the physical attributes you have are all well and good, but it's what happens between the ears and how quickly you process information on field. And something that young teams often do is, as a collective, they don't process the information quick enough. You can kind of have, that's why the balance of age, and that's why you and I rail against sometimes, in the middle of a year when people are just, just fuck it, play all the fucking kids that are at the Sandful level and are AFL listed, play them all, get the experience into them. It's just like,
this is what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And what experience are you gaining from a game like this? You still need to play the experience when you've got it and have a good balance. And this year, despite the injuries, to a certain point, we had a balance that worked okay. But then once Zach Butters went down, Georgiades missed a game with the concussion, and it's just different things started happening. And then you just get to the back end of a season, you've got weariness in the legs, and a team that is not going to play for anything at the end of this season, and you start getting these results as well. So, regardless of what you may feel about what a team should, the ethos should be playing out a season, I can understand. There is a subconscious thing that happens in any sporting team around the world, whatever it may be. Once you get to the back end of a year where you've got nothing to play for, there will just be the lactic acid builds up. You notice it.
It's a tale as old as time.
It really is, isn't it?
You see it every year.
Steven Gerrard's just Liverpool klaxon again. Steven Gerrard's last game for Liverpool, they lost 6-1 to Stoke City because they were out. They had nothing to play for, and even though it was Steven Gerrard's last game, they still fucking lost 6-1 to Stoke City. And they had nothing to play for, and you just saw it all fall apart because mentally they were already checked out. And as much as I'd like to say you should be checked in for every game because play for the jumper and all that stuff, it's just like we live in reality, ladies and gentlemen, and that's just they do. None of these guys go out there wanting to embarrass themselves. I'm never going to accuse them of that. They're just trying to they go through the motions a little bit because they are at the point of the season that they are just. And Mitch Georgiades is about to sign on for a couple more years, so he's invested at Port Adelaide for the future.
Yeah.
But just to let me finish. But these guys. They're invested for the future, but partly this year means nothing. So they're invested for next year now. They don't care about them. And I don't, at this point, brutally honest, I don't either. I just want to get to the draft and see Dougie Cochran and hold the jumper up. I don't give a shit about these last couple of games. So, but you still want to see them. We still would have liked to see a win on the last day. We were all there having a pint or 20 and a good time. But at the end of the day, there's nothing to play for.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a tale as old as time. It doesn't matter what football club it is. If they've had a poor year, whether it be through injury or through mismanagement of form, whatever it may be, it's all said and done. And like you said, it's not that players aren't going out there to compete or to play to win or anything like that. But we also spoke or a topic last year in Ken Hinckley's farewell season, and David King brought it up, is, does knowing that drop the energy off by 5%? And it's that 5% that makes the difference at AFL level football. These players, and it might not even be a conscious thing, but just knowing that we've had a fucking wretched year for a lot of reasons that aren't of anyone playing's fault. You've got 2 games to go, as it were, on Saturday against Melbourne. All it takes is those percentages to drop off. It's not like no one's trying or wants to lose. It's just the reality of sport. At the end of a minor round, when you're not competing for the playoff series or the final series, whatever it may be in that particular sport or league or whatever it may be, it's the same. It happens every single year, and all you can hope for is positive signs to go into preseason, as the coaches say, accelerate into the end of the year, which is very buzzwordy. Which I've noticed a few press conferences of our assistant coaches and even Josh Carr, dropping that one in. But that's what it's about. That's all we've got.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. You got to live in a modicum of reality, which I think a lot of the people that support the football club, particularly this year, do, and more particularly listen to this podcast. I think we all live in reality. I'd like to think we do, and it's, not accepting poor performances and, ruling with an iron fist. It's just
showing some
reality.
Yeah, showing some kindness to it, because I'm sure, like those 23 that played on the weekend, they're gonna walk off that field feeling pretty shitty about losing by 76 points. So I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you didn't play for the jumper, and accuse them of those kind of things. I just, I like to live in a place where I think a lot of these guys have got some promise, and some of these players may not be here at next year, but they went out and represented the team on the day. And while I just see it as a skill deficit against a very, very good Melbourne team. And that's why I think we've just got to accept that Melbourne are a good team, not dealing with too many terrible injuries like we are, and are well drilled and got some good young talent across the lines, and they're playing good football. And they're one of the kind of darling teams of the year, with the fact that they've kind of accelerated their rebuild a little bit with how they've gone in the first year of Stephen King. Doesn't mean it's going to continue in the long term over the next few years. They could have a drop off. It happens, but this year they're a well-drilled football team playing good footy. So you've got to accept that as well. Same with Sydney last week. They just played us off the park on their park, and just we've played some good teams over the last month. Really, it's actually been a gauntlet that we've gone through, and it's just starting to tell, particularly with the injuries. Any more points you want to make? I just figure we should start moving through the lines pretty quickly. It might be a little bit more negative maybe, but starting with the forwards, I'll just pop it out there as a positive. It was nice to see Mitch Georgiades. Seemed to be a 2-year extension, Mitch Georgiades. I'm buoyed by this now, at least. Nice to see him pop up with 4 goals, some very nice movement in some of the goals, and just he's playing out the season well, and that's a positive, I guess, there. That's all I've got, really. I just wanted to get that one out there. But yeah, nice to see Mr. Georgiades. And again, like I said, breaking on the podcast, well, not breaking with us, but I've seen it while we've been on podcast, that he is imminently signing an extension. So we should be thankful for that in the next couple of years, because I think going into next year with Mitch Georgiades in a contract year like Zach Butters I was not going to enjoy. So I'm thankful to him for kicking 4 goals and making that scoreline look a little bit better on the night, and also thankful for him to being considerate to my mental health next year and getting the extension signed sooner.
Fuck yeah, I totally agree. I'm all for that. Yeah, like I said, avoid the circus that is so painful in this day and age of contract discussion. But I just want to flip it back, because while you were talking, and yeah, I do want to move on as well, but this year, the end of this year, it reminds me very much of 2012. We all know what happened there, and from the club point of view, that's a different story, because our football club is in a much better position than it was back then. But just from the on-field, wretched year, we had our issues. It was full of youth, up-and-coming players. We finished the year losing to Fremantle by 27, GWS, the famous one, by 34. Hawthorn beat us by 72 points. West Coast beat us by 48. Brisbane beat us by 11, but they finished 1 spot above us on the ladder. And then we famously finished, well, not famously, but notably finished the season with a draw against Richmond. And I can see that happening against Essendon, just like, fuck this year. Yeah, draw. What do you mean? What does that mean for Dougie Cochran? But then we all know what happened in 2013, and then 2014 is an extension of that. That's how quickly these things can change. And again, have a dose of reality, but look forward to the future as well. So that's what I'll end on. My positive to the forward line was the exact same thing as you. It was just good to see George end with a 0 in the behind column, but goals in the goal column, and to the tune of 4. And it kind of bumped him back up to a 50-50 ledger in terms of goal. Oh, well, I think that was before he kicked the 4 goals. So I think it was 46 goals, 46 behinds at one point. But I think he kicked 1 or 2 more goals after they spoke about that. From a negative point of view, it's really hard to nail down anything for our forward line. With the supply, with the sloppy movement from up the ground. I guess it's more of a disappointment because Jack Whitlock had the highs of the 3-goal game against Sydney and ends up as a negatively rated player on the field. Yeah. Negative 3.3 for Jack Whitlock. All the notes and mitigating factors. It was just disappointing. Like, I was just like, oh no, keep kicking goals, Jack. But yeah. Zatto had a quiet game. Berry had a quiet game. But in the forward line, it was a shambles. to get it there in the first place. So for anyone who did make an impact, it's a credit to them. Durden keeps contributing and fine of the season. But from a negatives point of view, it's pretty hard to nail anything down. We weren't overly inaccurate across the game from our 16 shots on goal. But yeah, just more disappointed for Jack that he ends up with negative 3.3 player rating when, we have high hopes for him, and it would have been good to see him, continue that goal kicking. Well, it wasn't form, it was a return to goal kicking against Sydney, but it would have been good to see him continue on with that, which unfortunately didn't happen. Just kicking the one behind.
Yeah. I think overall it's been it's probably more end of season review, but he's by and large been a positive this year. He's probably developed that at a more rapid pace than I expected this year. So it's just the ups and downs of a young tall key forward is just going to have those ones, particularly in a game that, another one maybe takes the chocolates. I guess one small part, for a minute, just wanted to mention Todd Marshall continues to show signs of life, I think, which is a good thing.
That's a
going
great,
forward.
He's in ICU, and he's just he's got all the ECG
and his mark and kick for goal was really nice. His arms are looking thick, and he's just looking a little bit more, starting to just feel it a little bit down forward. It's not like great performances or anything like that. He's not game breaking or anything, but just like I said, signs of life. He's contracted for a couple of years. Whether or not something happens trade-wise, I don't know, and I'm open to it but again, I like Todd Marshall just as a person. His journey as a person is one, there's that heartbreak in his personal life with the parents and everything. So, I like him a lot, and I'd like to see him, if he does stick around for a couple more years, so it's positive for me to see him, show those signs of life again after an indifferent year, and he's just one of those players who gets unfairly scapegoated at times. It's constructive criticism, that's fair for him at times as well. We understand that, but I'm glad to just see him showing those signs.
Yeah, off the back of that, Chad Corns actually brought that up on SENSA today as well, Tuesday, 18th of August, that is. That I think he was being conservative and saying, Todd's had an okay finish to the year, and it's good to see him playing out full games and whatnot. But yeah, he finishes the game with 7 marks, which is equal first. I mean, he actually took 2 contested marks, one obviously netting him the goal of his. What was that, in the second quarter? Yeah, second quarter. So 1 goal, one behind, and a goal assist. I agree. He's now managed a block of form, or a block of games, and just kind of regularity that he's able to contribute to a minor extent. It'll be interesting to see what happens coming into next season. And I just continue to think, what could have the year looked like if he started in his natural position, in my opinion, and he was able to get those block of games in the vicinity where he's spent all of his footballing life. But we'll never know. I'm not going to ruminate, I'm not going to let it eat me up from within. It's just a interesting thought. That wouldn't have really changed the course of our season as a whole, probably, but, could he have ended up with a 30 to 40 goal season himself, like Corey Durden? We'll never know, but we'll see next year what happens.
I guess with
Jack McCocious likely to be pegged on a wing, leaving that kind of space vacant, and maybe with Dante Vicentini playing back.
Yeah. There's so many permutations going into next year that'll be really intriguing. Speaking of the backs, we'll go to the backs first quickly before we finish on the midfield before the segments. I'll let you go first here. I have intriguing thoughts on the back line, probably a little bit more negative out of this one. Not overly, but just it is just disappointing to see us get chewed up the way we have been. So what are you thinking down back?
Just wanted to give fair fucks to Bailyn O'Brien. I think this was another one that maybe it was even Anthony Alessiani from the Pair YouTube channel on Twitter highlighted him. Maybe someone else on SEN as well. Just the fact that, this is a kid who's come in probably prematurely. He's only managed, no more than maybe 5 or 6 disposals in each game that he's played. But I thought he looked just that extra step more comfortable at AFL level. He finishes the game with 15 disposals, going at 80% disposal efficiency. And it was, like I said, it was a step in the right direction in a back line that was in disarray for the large part of the game. And, I'm sure he still needs the tutelage of the structure and, what to do with the ball, what to do without the ball, all of those things. But just wanted to give him fair fucks, a little pat on the back for actually being able to impact the game, involve himself in the game to a higher extent, which is what you need to do in your progression as an AFL footballer. And he did that. So, yeah, fair fucks to him.
Fair fucks to him. Yeah. That's a good point too, because he again, I see that hesitation step in him as well. But like the other thing, it's not like a hesitation step in that he's scared of it. It's just like it actually just like his thought process going through it. But his actual application to the contest is not something I doubt. He kind of does throw himself around pretty well. I do enjoy that aspect of his game. He's not no shrinking violet out there at all. It's just like, as I said, it's just like actually having the subconscious quick thought processing that a more experienced player has. He just doesn't have that yet. But
managed 3 clearances too, just as a tidbit there on the end. So
that's good. I guess it's probably
obviously the ball was stoppage was living around that area for a lot of the time.
Hey, still,
when it's presented to you.
He's contributed to the win on the stoppage sheet. So there you go. That's good. I hadn't actually seen that clearance number for him, so that's good.
Just
I guess
roaming.
more. I guess more as an overall structural concern going forward. And again, it's just like injury luck is injury luck, and it's just that thing that you can never quite tell. But it does make you just sit there and go, like what our recruiting is over the next 18 months, 2 years in the backline in particular, because we're playing, Harrison Ram and Balin O'Brien are kind of playing down there. We're throwing Vicentini down there now, which, hey, look, if he turns into a backman, fuck yeah, like I'm down. I just like Vicentini, so like I'm down if that just works out. I've seen Rory Lobb do these kind of moves have worked in the past, so we'll see what we can. And you've got Billy Frampton suddenly being like a borderline All-Australian. So weirder things have happened. But just overall, you look at Aaliyah going down, and he's a veteran. Obviously, he's a concussion, so hopefully he's going to come back fine for next season. But with Brandon Zerk-Thatcher just seemingly probably not for the long term, Asava Radaglia going to miss a fair bit of next year as well. There's a bit of a, whatever positives we can step forward around the rest of the field next year, it does make me just the concern, like the concerns are just in the back line, like just how that's going to structure up over the next couple of years. I know that eventually we'll get the recruitment in there. I just have, as a positive thinking person, I just have that trust that we'll get there eventually. But I do in this immediate moment just have my concerns about the overall, just the inexperience down there and those kind of things. And this game kind of bore that out for me a little bit. Once Aaliyah went down, it just was like, how quickly is Harrison Ram going to develop into anything worthy of, I'm not trying to shit on the kid, but he still looks very raw at times. Athletically, like he has the heights, he has the build. It's like how quickly he's going to figure out the game at the AFL level. And it's like you can still see that's just not quite there for him yet. So, yeah, it's just an overall structural thing is like the concern is there for the defense over the next 18 months because, we've got injury concerns and age concerns and underneath those ones, it's a lot of youthful inexperience.
I agree. And it's been a thought of mine ever since seeing Brandon Zerk-Thatcher try and run for a football and turn like a boat. Again, not to denigrate him. We really enjoyed his 2024 season. But injuries have, much like many other footballers, particularly in and around the Port Adelaide Football Club, injuries to backs and hips and stuff like that tend to have a flow-on effect. John Butcher and Jack Hompsch even suffered at the hands of hip and leg injuries and a bit of
Todd
back.
Marshall. Yeah.
Todd.
Currently.
Yeah. Todd.
Hip.
Fuck, he couldn't kick a football.
Hips, Achilles.
Yeah. So again, just off the back of Todd, good to see him getting into a flow. I thought it was funny at one point, like Harrison Petty really worked over Harrison Ram, the two Harrisons. And Petty took a mark, a good kick, entry inside 50. He took a mark like straight in front. And I saw Dante kind of give Harry Ram a bit of like, fuck's sake, kind of energy. This is funny because Dante's just, entered the defensive line. But I agree with you, but just to take an aside, I think, Dante, 3 intercept possessions from his 9. 5 marks and 3 of those being intercept marks. And then he ends up with 9 1%ers leading the team, I think, for the second week in a row. 2 contested defensive 1-on-1s, and he didn't lose either of them. I agree wholeheartedly. And from all accounts, Harrison Ram had the best preseason that the coaches could have asked for. Excuse me. Leading into 2026, and even, found himself in favour ahead of Asava Radaglia. And had it not been for a early season injury or niggle, would have found himself, by all accounts. But he is raw. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not going to ship off a teenager or hang shit on a teenager like some other supporters would like to do. He's not the only teenager either, mind you. But it's going to take some time. So all we can hope for is that his preseason leading into 2027 is just as fucking good as what his most recent preseason was. By all accounts, from what we hear from the coaches and players, because we're going to need the key position depth. And I just simply don't think Zerk Thatcher. Again, I don't know his contract status. It is available. I should keep a tab on these things.
I think he's out of contract at the end of this year.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's a ruthless call that gets made. Because
we've seen it happen for Ryan Burton and players like that in recent years.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure Ryan Burton, by Champion Data ratings last year, was one of our better rated players, funnily enough.
Secret herbs and spices of Champion Data ratings, eh?
Yeah. But I think it was Mark Bickley made the point, like, if Zerk Thatcher can't get into the team now, or maybe it was Walshy, one of the two, on SCNSA breakfast, like, if he can't get into the team now, like, how is he going to get into the team next year while we're waiting for Radaglia to heal? It's unfortunate for him, and it's ominous moving forward. So have we found one in Dante? After the revelation that he did play a lot of defense in junior football, but how much of that can you draw upon, and how much of that can you expect him to just go, all right, you're a defender now, and not be the Todd Marshall situation again? Just on the surface though, it looks like he has a bit more defensive nous than Todd did. Todd was basically like can you intercept, mark, and use the ball well? Whereas I think Dante looks like he likes to get involved in the physicality of it all, as well as like he's clearly shown a penchant for intercepting as well, and being able to impact the play in that regard. I don't have high hopes, but that's what we have to hope for, is that either Harrison Ram or Dante Visentini, if they choose to go along with that project, that they have fucking great preseasons and they can at least hold up with the second defender, because Aliir is going to have his work cut out for him yet again next year.
Yes, he will. He's we need Aliir to be 100% game time for a year again, basically. The poor bastard. What a legend, and just a shout out again for his 200 games. It's sad the way it ended for him. Obviously he's fine. It was good to see him smiling and happy at the end of the game and all that. But I'm sad that he had to cop that whack, quite literally, on the game day. Midfield, before we get to the segments to close out here. Actually, I find the midfield an intriguing one because there's a lot of like good stats and everything in there. It's just like, again, I think I've already brought up probably my negative for it is it's just like outside the actual stoppage itself, we just don't have the experience and skill on the outside to take advantage of what is a reasonable year in the actual engine room itself. It's the outside, it's the chassis, it's all that stuff around it that's just not working. So I guess that's my negative, is just like, this game really bore out just how much we need to work on that skill and ball movement outside the contest itself. Because, we get good stat lines from Ollie from JHF on his broken toe. Jordan Sweet, again, is incredible, I think, against one of the best ruckmen of all time. So there's some good, and Joe Richards comes back in and plays well. Like stats are good, and again, the team stats in the middle are really good as well. It's just outside of that when you go into the Wheeler ratings and get those ground balls and stuff like that. It's just, that's my negative for the week is we just can't use the ball for shit once we get it out of the contest.
Well, and the funny thing is you look at it. Joe Richards 82.8%, Jace Burgoyne, who was a bit more outside midfield, kind of supportive, 74%. Miles Bergman 77.8, and then you get to Ollie Wines and JHF who are around the 65, 67. Jordan Sweet as well. Willem Drew 50%. So I guess those are the culprits that you're more alluding to, I suppose. But it's such an interesting topic because it does rest on what Zach Butters chooses to do. If he stays, everything looks a lot more solid with the hopes that Connor Rosie comes back in and then that depth just lengthens it to the next degree. But it comes down to synergy for me as well.
That's
because
it.
A lot of these players kind of been mishmashing. They're probably trying things that we're not privy to as well. Because I think in the midst of this injury crisis, I think we have found another element or where I think we found some more depth to our midfield. It's just, are they going to be able to contribute to wins, or is it just going to be more competitive, honourable losses on our horizon? That's the question. But on the flip side of that, my positive is Joe Richards, because I think one thing he has shown when he's been settled in the midfield is that he can contribute from a disposal point of view, obviously, but contest and ground ball, which is super important on the inside to get it out. But then when you are getting it out, it's moving it at 82.8% disposal efficiency in this instance and 480 metres gain. I think, are we going to win a game off the back of Joe Richards? Doubtful for me at the moment, but he adds depth to the midfield, and in a period where over the next couple of years and Ollie Wines maybe, finishing up, just having that kind of hard worker type fill in there, use the ball well, make good decisions, but not afraid of the contest and good on the ground. It's just a well-rounded package that has been a positive in us needing to try new things. There's obviously some other positives, such as, Burgoyne in, having his career best game last week, for instance. But off the back of this game, Joe Richards comes back after having his broken finger. So, phalanges at both ends of the body in our team are getting affected. But I think Joe Richards is definitely one that, regardless of whether Zach stays or goes, will be a mainstay in our midfield moving forward.
He will be, yeah. And it was really nice to see him come back and just move in there effortlessly. I'm sure like a finger injury doesn't affect too much of what everything you're doing, but I'm sure it's still, I don't know, it depends how much pain it was and how much it affected him. But yeah, it's good to see him just get right in there. And I think he was one of the first ones to come and fly the flag for Aaliyah, even though it was a weird one because Jacob Van Rooyen immediately showed contrition, even though it was clearly just a reckless act. I don't say reckless and dirty. It's just like it was just, the duty of care thing that they're going for. It's just like
Just
that
dumb.
was not. Yeah. But
It's just like, fuck, I'm not going to mark it or spoil it, but here, cop a whack kind of thing.
Yeah. No. What was I going to say? One positive, just the one that I wanted to bring up for just a second before we get to the segments, because we try to close this out in as close to 2 hours as possible. But I like Xavier Bamet's game again. 14 disposals. I think he's the only player of ours that had multiple goal assists. He had 2 goal assists for the game.
I did note that. Before we jumped on. Interesting.
Yeah. So he just did some things that I like again. So again, this is part of the growth through pain that we're dealing with at the moment. Is like, a player like Xavier Bamet's getting a fair bit more time than he maybe would have expected, particularly before he got drafted in the mid-season draft. So, what we've found in him, I'm not exactly sure yet, but he's at least a solid contributor. And you do need some of those in a side, particularly the next couple of years. He's certainly showing enough that I'm excited to see what he's going to look like after a full preseason in the program. So, there's a few players that'll come up when we get to the votes here in a moment. So let's get to the segments, which of course the Wilson Gray is up first, and I do get to go first this week. I actually haven't looked up who won last week's, and I'm not going to do that this week because we're pressed for time. So we have to get right into it. Obviously, with a lot of prep to do going into this week with the women's game as well. I get to go first this week, and I'm going to go. You brought up the Vicentini bump from last year earlier, and I was very, very excited that you did because it's a real good kind of foreshadowing Chekhov's gun kind of thing. Because I'm going with Dante Vicentini's bump on Caleb Windsor in the first quarter. Really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed Ken Hinckley's commentary of it, that I think he said along the lines of, the man does enjoy inflicting pain. So Vicentini enjoying inflicting pain on Caleb Windsor is my nomination for the week.
In there, Bowie, lightning handball forward, and it just opens it up and creates some opportunity for Melbourne. Windsor, look out! Big hit! Vicentini coming forward. Straight back to his feet, though, is Windsor, who gets back into Vicentini. Big bump, and Melbourne on the mark, dropped by Petty.
The man does enjoy inflicting pain.
Yeah, fantastic. Unfortunately, though, I think he gave up a free kick, whereas on Leclerc, it was just as pure can be and play on.
It should have been play on, though, I think. But
the height difference. I know. Yeah, it's one of those ones where the umpire gives it on the look of it, I think, rather than was it actually there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love a bump. Agree with Ken's sentiments wholeheartedly, and he's just basically like, that's footy. If it's done well, that's footy. So my nomination is going to be Lachie Jones I've got written here the second quarter, 9:45 on the clock. He closes to spoil and then grabs the ball and crashes through a player or two to try and drive the ball forward. Just a good and typical Lachie Jones moment.
O'Brien.
Love a good Lachie Jones moment. The flowing mullet still just he's an aesthetically pleasing player to watch. And I think he's quietly had a nice year that gives us something to look forward to for next year if he can keep staying injury free, which would be nice. So good couple of nominations there. Looking forward to seeing what the people pick. It's good to, out of a game like this, to have a few options there. So goal of the week, Jamie, and you get to go first this week. So I'm intrigued to see what you've got here.
Lovely. Look, bit tough on the goal front. Obviously, we didn't kick that many, but funnily enough, we had a lot of set shots. And I don't know what our marks inside 50 ended up 12 apiece for the game. So
one of those weird statistical things out of this game is that there was some areas that's like, oh, that doesn't look so bad. Why did we lose by 76? But then you see the turnover numbers.
yeah, exactly. Shit. So look, funnily enough, I'm not going to go a set shot, although there's, one in particular that was quite nice visually. I'm just going to go Jordan Sweet snapping from congestion in the third quarter. Good game for Sweet. Competed with, might come up. Maybe could have discussed him in the midfield line, but yeah, really took it to Max Scorn and made him pay on the scoreboard with his 2 goals overall. But this one in particular was quite nice. Just a bit of congestion in the forward pocket, grabs it, snaps it, and thankfully we got a goal on the board.
Yes, we did get a goal on the board. And nice little, I think it was a little Ollie Wines extract for him there as well. So, very, very nice.
Never
goal.
get tired of an Ollie Wines extract.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's always nice to watch. Well, my nomination then is probably, you mentioned nice set shots. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about, but I knowing your proclivities with set shots, it might be. I'm going to nominate Mitch Georgiades' set shot a couple of minutes into the third quarter. I think it was a bit of cricket commentary. Yeah, there we go. Jamie's doing the reverse swing on camera for those watching on YouTube. That's my nomination. Beautiful, just a beautiful one to be right behind it on the camera angle to watch it kind of look like it was going to angle back towards the post and then just swing back late. A beautifully executed set shot by Mitch Georgiades to finish that one off. Really, really one of the more aesthetically pleasing set shots I've seen all year.
Mitch, just goal kicking Mitch. 2 general play, 2 set shot. Thank you very much. And the second set shot that he had in the game was just nice and straight. I was like, could this be the reset heading into 2027 that he needs? We've got one more game and then a preseason, but fucking loved his game. So great call. Reverse swing, obviously, yes. Tugs at the heartstrings, I guess, for me. But it was just a good goal too. So great call.
Yeah. Hey, maybe he knew going into the weekend that he'd finally gotten the contract stuff sorted and that was a load off his mind and he's just kicking straight now. Who knows?
Maybe.
The Kaltumi the Kaltumi drop in the middle of this episode's really just changed my mindset towards Mitch Georgiades. So, alrighty, let's get to the Player of the Year votes. Of course, you were listening earlier in the episode with the women, so same format here. I'm going first this week on the Player of the Year vote. So my one vote, I'll leave obviously only honourable mentions possibly for after Jamie's done, but I'm giving my one vote to Jason Horne-Francis. I saw on the AFL website they had him listed as best. I understand, obviously later on we found out he had the broken toe. And I actually think there's a fair handful of players I could have had as best on field. I don't think it's one of those games when you lose by 76 points, you have a clear best on. It's just you have a bunch of players that played okay in the game. So Jason Horne-Francis, he still does Jason Horne-Francis things. He has the 23 disposals, 5 marks, 3 tackles. He has the 6 clearances. He goes at 65% disposal efficiency, 9 contested possessions. He has almost 500 metres gained as well. I think it was 494. I've got there, 6 score involvement. So a lot of areas almost like best on field or almost best on field areas, a kind of stat line that maybe if he'd kicked a couple of goals, probably gets him a few more, maybe up the list a little bit. It's just just one of those games. And there's a few others that I wanted to reward as well. And again, rewarding people in a 76-point loss, I don't know what that means, but that's what I'm saying. I have Jordan Sweet in my 2-vote spot. And the more I've thought about it, I think I might be shortchanging him here, but he's there and I'm not changing it on the run here. So I'll be interested to see where he is on yours. I'm assuming he's in yours. But I actually think the Jordan Sweet stat line is quite incredible considering he was up against one of the best ruckmen ever at this point. 25 hit-outs. He has the 7 marks. He has the 6 clearances himself as well. He has 4 inside 50s. He has the 7 score involvements. He has 485 metres gained. Like, he does so much more than just the ruck craft in this one. His clearances are split between stoppage and centre. He has a 3-1 percenters, goes at 66%, kicks the goal, of course. So just if you look at it, just as a ruckman, that's an incredible ruckman stat line. So it probably deserves to maybe be a bit more up my list. And I am kind of disagreeing with my own list at this point. I've got Miles Bergman, but I don't have any arguments against the guys I've got above at the moment either. But it's like Miles Bergman I've got in the third spot. He has 551 metres gained. He has 5-1 percenters and 6 score involvements amongst his 27 disposals, 7 marks. His 27 disposals go at 77.8% efficiency. So with the metres gained, the efficiency there, he has 6 intercept possessions as well. It's a really kind of, we've seen a return to form from Miles Bergman in the last 4 to 6 weeks, and this was one of those games that really just impressed me with what he does provide when he's playing good footy, and he has 3 clearances himself as well. So a really, really well-rounded stat line from Miles Bergman. So in the 4th spot, I have Ollie Wines, which I'll never be mad at myself for putting Ollie Wines up in the top 2 of mine. He leads us for disposals with 31. He has in 64% time on ground, by the way, as well. This is why I'm so impressed by the Ollie Wines game, and maybe he deserves to be up more. He has the 8 clearances, 350 metres gained. He goes at 67% disposal efficiency, 67.7, which at 31 disposals for a player that plays the kind of role he does in a game that the way that was played is pretty good in my standards. He has 7 tackles. Like I said, he had the 8 clearances as well, 4 inside 50s. Just a really, really good Ollie Wines performance. Almost had him in as my best on as well, but I went with Joe Richards. It was real, again, splitting hairs, as I talked similarly about with the women earlier. Joe Richards, my best on with 5 votes. He had the 29 disposals going 82.8% efficiency. He had 9 clearances with 7 of those from the centre, so a really, really good performance from him in there. He had the 7 score involvements, which was equal best on with Jordan Sweet. He goes with 480 metres gained as well. Just a really nice stat line for Joe Richards. Really, there's 3 tackles, like I said. Flies the flag for Aaliyah, even though he kind of didn't have much go with him, and kind of I think it was all handbags at 10 paces pretty quickly. But he has 6 marks as well, and just a nice Joe Richards game, return to form immediately after coming back from a few weeks out with injury. So as I read through those, I was like, I don't have too much issue with where I've got people. It's just like I really think Jordan Sweet deserves to be best on as well somehow. So I'm interested to see where yours are.
Very interesting votes this week. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the similar players. But yeah, I guess Bergman unfortunately ended up in my honourable mentions. Yeah. His stats look great. I don't know if I'm marking him too harshly for some of his disposals. And then, even like you said, 6 score involvements. But I watched the replay and I found him dump kicking a lot, which rubbed me up the wrong way. And I haven't been able to let it go clearly, because his stats look good, and it looks like in the realm of where we were hoping him to be start of the season, then throughout. But I think he has the capabilities to, on this game in particular, with some of the possessions that he got, I think that he had capabilities of lifting, that score involvement number up even further. But unfortunately went for a few, just long kicks in hope. But he's even still used it at 77.8. So can't argue with your reasoning getting him into yours. My 1 vote, however, goes to JHF as well. That's where we match, and that's where the Yahtzee potential finishes. I've got Joe Richards as my 2 votes. In a game where we did win clearance, but we got belted. The midfield was an interesting mix for me. Probably deserves to be higher, but luckily you got him higher, so that's all well and good. It comes out in the wash. I do, however, have Mitch Georgiades as my 3 votes. I figure if you're kicking 50% of the team's goals in a game where it doesn't really get into your area very much, then you're having a pretty good game. Maybe have given him 1 too many votes, and maybe that should be switched around. But 4 goals straight from 15 disposals for Mitch, 370 odd metres, 6 marks, 5 ground ball gets. He was working up and down the ground as well, trying to support. But yeah, 4 goals in a game where we kicked 8 total. It was a pretty darn good effort, and just goes to show how well he can impact a game even when the team is doing pretty poorly. My 4 votes goes to Jordan Sweet for a lot of the reasons that you were discussing while you were reading out your votes.
And
Coming up
disagreeing with my own votes, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is where the Joe Richards, Jordan Sweet, we've kind of evened it out in the CREEDCAST votes here. Jordan Sweet, his AFL player rating was just ridiculous in the end, 27.3. And, a clear personal best, I think it was. He beat Max Gawn for hit-outs. He made his impact count on the scoreboard. He actually kicked 2 goals. I don't know if that was a slip of the tongue, but you mentioned he kicked a goal. He kicked the long goal from 50 as well. I think that was in the second quarter. It was at the southern end. I know that much. Regardless, he's put the.
Was that when I fell asleep watching the replay? That did happen.
Wow. Well, and you have no live recollection to draw back on. So
exactly,
if we taking a little nap or a little snack break without pausing KO, then that can happen. But just his overall game. You read out all his key statistics, but coming up against the best ruckman, potentially ever. Potentially going to be a 9-time All-Australian, who did have a good game, and it was a genuinely good battle. It was good, a good contest to watch in the overall mess of a game that it was. But I think, Jordan Sweet has really established himself. He's still drawing plaudits from Mark Rasciuto in commentary too. He's kind of flabbergasted by how good Jordan Sweet has been this year, and is paying him his due credit. But I thought, this is a guy that's just putting it all out there for the team and playing his role to the nth degree. My 5 votes actually goes to Ollie Wines, the Port Adelaide social team's MVP for the week. Like you mentioned, 64% time on ground, but netting 31 disposals. He always tends to play well against Melbourne, and I've always thought that's because Jack Viney plays for Melbourne, and they're obviously good family friends growing up, and they've kind of got this mono. Jack Viney obviously not playing football for Melbourne this year. I think that's due to injury. But Ollie Wines just always tends. Obviously, we all remember his debut game being against Melbourne and the tackle on, I think it was David Roden, actually. That tried to sidestep him. Just so many fibres being woven in real time. But Ollie Wines, just an honest 9 ground ball gets. You read out a lot of his key statistics, 15 contested possessions, but extrapolating that out from his time on ground, our second AFL player rated player for the game. Giving him a nice little boost to his votes overall for the season in my regard.
Yeah. No, and it's funny. I actually, as you were reading it and you got to Mitch Georgiades, I do recall when I was watching the replay, because I'd already done some votes, and then watching the replay, I was like, I need to get Mitch in there somewhere. And I just didn't actually go back and rejig. But getting Mitch in the votes it's one of those things that sometimes you get stuck into the weeds of some of the stats of some of the players that you have been impressed with. And I was impressed by some of the things that some of the other guys did, but I do remember thinking, I need to get Mitch in there somewhere, because your forwards you have to have a different metric, and I just forgot to go back and rejig. And I don't know who I would drop out, but I am a little bit mad at myself, and I actually think Jordan Sweet has a case for being best on ground, depending on what your metrics are, and I've got him in the 2 spots. So I just really disagree with my own votes this week. So that's just how it is. But
it's all
Jamie, we've
done.
Yeah,
it's all good.
We've done it, Jamie. We've got through 2 reviews in just over 2 hours. So I think we've done a really, really good job tonight. Pat on the back for ourselves.
Format's working well. Happy for feedback, those listening and watching.
The 26
happy for some feedback.
The 26 YouTube viewers or whatever it is. Shout out to Shanna, who said proud to be one of the 26.
Shout out to everyone who follows our content, whether you're on YouTube or listening. We love you all.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. And make sure to share it with your friends, share it, follow, subscribe on the socials, particularly this time of year. And we really want to push the fact that we are doing this and sticking with it through the women's season. I'm really, really excited for it, and we want to keep building the fan base for the women's games as well. And of course, we will be previewing properly on Thursday, but the women do play their opening home match of the season at Alberton at 4:50 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. So get that
Pajama party. Bring your kids.
That's right. I did see something of a pajama party. So yeah. Alberton's just such a great. I mean, you know yourself, having brought your daughter down a few times, and my sister's brought down my nephew for a game. The family atmosphere at Alberton is just wonderful because you can let the kids run around a little bit and enjoy the festivities down there. And obviously, our spiritual and still our home for over 140 years now at Alberton is it's a wonderful place that we get to call our home ground for the AFLW season. So get down there, support the girls. They're off to a great start. Of course, the men do play their last game of the year away at Essendon on earlier that afternoon as well. So, perfect day to get down to Alberton, have a beer in the Port Club, watch the men do whatever they do for the last game of the year, and then
do
play
something
a game of football objectively. We can just cheer and thank Miss Georgiades for signing an extension, and then watch the women hopefully get their second win of the year. So a big Sunday coming up for the Port Adelaide Football Club. We'll preview it properly on Thursday, but for now, calm the fucking pair.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. We'll catch you later on.